Hi, welcome back to Digestible News, where we talk about the news in digestible English. Before we start, make sure you've got something warm to drink or cold, your preference. Today I have a shot of espresso. Little pick-me-up before the day. All right, tell me what you guys are drinking in the comments down below. I like hearing about it. But before we go to the news, let's talk about the weather this week. Tuesday, December 23rd, today, when I'm filming this, was pretty cold. Had a high of around 3 with a low of -1. It was rainy on and off today, but not too bad. Wednesday, December 24th, Christmas Eve, you can expect a high of around 4 degrees Celsius with the low dipping to -2 degrees. The precipitation chance is quite low, so maybe no rain, but it'll still be quite cold, so be careful. Thursday, December 25th, is Christmas Day, and it's going to be even colder. Honestly, the coldest day yet. The high will be around -2, and the low will dip to -10. So clear skies, so no rain or snow, but it will be quite chilly. So bundle up this week. We're looking at freezing temperatures, especially in the mornings and evenings. The good news is it should be clear and sunny despite the cold after Tuesday. So no need to worry about any rain or snow. Make sure to wear layers, warm coat, hat, scarf, and gloves when you head outside. All right, let's dive into today's stories. Story number 1 takes place in Russia. A high-ranking Russian general was killed on Monday morning when a bomb exploded under his car in Moscow. This is the third time a senior Russian military officer has been killed in a similar attack within 1 year. Lieutenant General Fanil Sarvarov was the head of the Operational Training Directorate of the Russian Armed Forces General Staff. This means he was responsible for training Russian military forces. He died from his injuries after the explosive device detonated or exploded underneath his vehicle in southern Moscow. Svetlana Petrenko is the spokesperson for Russia's investigative committee. The investigative committee is Russia's top criminal investigation agency. It's similar to the FBI in the United States. Petrenko said, investigators are pursuing numerous lines of inquiry regarding the murder. That means they're looking into multiple avenues, multiple ways that this can happen. One of these is that the crime was orchestrated by Ukrainian intelligence services. Orchestrated means planned or organized. Russian authorities believe that Ukraine's intelligence services, their spy agency, may have planned this assassination. Since Russia sent troops into Ukraine nearly 4 years ago, Russian authorities have blamed Ukraine for several assassinations of military officers and public figures inside of Russia. An assassination is the murder of an important or famous person, usually for political reasons. Ukraine has claimed responsibility for some of these killings, meaning they have publicly admitted to doing them. However, Ukraine has not commented on Monday's death of General Sarvarov as of right now. This may change in the near future. Dmitry Peskov is the Kremlin spokesperson. This means it's the person who speaks on behalf of the Russian government. Peskov said that Vladimir Putin, the president, was immediately informed about Sarvarov's killing. The Russian defense minister provided some background about General Sarvarov. They said he had previously fought in Chechnya and taken part in Russia's military campaign in Syria. Chechnya is a region in southern Russia where there were 2 major wars in the 1990s and the early 2000s. This attack follows a pattern of similar killings. Just over a year ago, another high-ranking Russian general was killed in a very similar way. Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov was the chief of the military's nuclear, biological, and chemical protection forces. It's a lot of government words, I'm sorry, but this means he was responsible for protecting Russian forces from weapons like nuclear bombs, biological weapons, and chemical weapons. Kirillov was killed by a bomb that was hidden on an electric scooter outside his apartment building in Moscow. His assistant also died in the explosion. Ukraine's security service claimed responsibility for this attack, meaning they publicly said they did it. They acknowledged that they did it. After Kirillov's death, Russian authorities quickly arrested an Uzbek man. Uzbek means he's from Uzbekistan, and it is a country in Central Asia north of Afghanistan. This man was charged with killing Kirillov on behalf of the Ukrainian security service, meaning Ukraine hired him, paid him money, or convinced him to carry out the attack. President Putin called Kirillov's killing a major blunder, blunder being a serious mistake, by Russian security agencies. Putin was criticizing his own security forces for failing to protect the general. He said they should learn from this mistake and improve their efficiency, meaning they should do their job better. There was another similar attack in April of this year. Lieutenant General Yaroslav Moskalik was killed by an explosive device placed in his car. Moskalik was a deputy head of the main operational department in the general staff, another important military position. And again, government words are difficult, but it just means he helped lead the general staff inside of government buildings, for military buildings. His car was parked near his apartment building just outside Moscow when the bomb exploded. Again, a suspected perpetrator, this is a person believed to have committed the crime, was quickly arrested. Days after Moskalik's killing, Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky made an interesting statement. He said he received a report from the head of Ukraine's foreign intelligence agency about the liquidation of top military figures. Liquidation is a term that means killing someone, usually an enemy. Zelensky added that justice inevitably comes. Justice inevitably comes, his quote. Meaning justice always arrives eventually. However, he did not specifically mention Moskalik's name. These three assassinations show a pattern. All three victims were high-ranking Russian military officers. All three were killed by explosive devices, bombs. All three attacks happened in or near Moscow, Russia's capital city, and Russian authorities believe all three attacks were carried out by or on behalf of Ukrainian intelligence. This situation is part of the larger conflict between Russia and Ukraine. The war began when Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022. Since then, the fighting has continued, with both sides suffering casualties. While most of the fighting happens in Ukraine, these assassinations show that Ukraine is also conducting operations inside Russia itself. For Russia, these killings are embarrassing. They show that even in Moscow, the nation's capital, Ukrainian operatives or their helpers can reach high-ranking military officials. Each time a general is killed, it raises questions about Russian security and whether the government can protect its own leaders. For Ukraine, these operations, if they are indeed responsible, serve multiple purposes. They eliminate Russian military leaders who are planning or conducting the war. They also send a message that Ukraine can strike back, even inside Russia. And they may force Russia to divert resources to protecting their officials at home instead of using those resources in the war. As of now, no one has been arrested for Monday's killing of General Sarvarov. The investigation is ongoing. It remains to be seen whether Ukraine will claim responsibility for this attack or whether Russian authorities will find evidence linking it to Ukrainian intelligence. Let's look at our vocabulary. Number one is detonated. Detonated is a verb, to detonate. This is the past tense. It means to explode or exploded. When a bomb or explosive goes off, it detonates. Number two is assassination. This is the murder of an important person or a famous person, usually for political or military reasons. It's a little strange to say a famous singer was assassinated, but a president, yes, that makes sense. Number three, orchestrated. This is a verb, comes from orchestra. So when you lead an orchestra, you tell it what to do, right? Carefully planned or organized. So especially something complex or involving many people. Orchestrate an assassination, orchestrate a space launch, orchestrate a concert. It all makes sense. All right, let's move on. Let's take a quick sip break. How is everyone doing today? Well, I hope. If you've made it this far, why not subscribe and like the video? It really helps me know if you like this kind of content, and it helps the channel a whole lot. I really appreciate it. All right, let's move into story number 2. A few weeks ago, we talked about some students that were kidnapped in Nigeria. Do you remember? So here's an update. The last group of 130 kidnapped Nigerian school children were freed on Sunday and are expected to be reunited with their families on Monday. This ends a month-long ordeal that drew concern from people around the world. Last month, unknown gunmen kidnapped an estimated 215 school children and 12 teachers from St. Mary's Catholic School in the Papiri community in Niger State. Niger State is located in central Nigeria and runs west from the capital city, Abuja, to the neighboring country of Benin. An ordeal is a very difficult or painful experience that lasts for a period of time. For these children and their families, the past month has been extremely frightening and stressful. Shortly after the kidnapping, 50 children managed to escape. Then, on December 7th, another 100 children were released. Finally, on Sunday, the last 130 children were freed. Sunday Dare is the presidential spokesperson, the person who speaks on behalf of Nigeria's president. He posted on X, or Twitter, on Sunday, another 130 abducted Niger State pupils released, none left in captivity. This means all the children are now free and none are still being held by the kidnappers. The last group of children were reportedly released near Nigeria's border with Benin. However, just like with previous releases, there was no information about how they regained their freedom or what group was behind the abduction. Many other details also remain unclear. For example, we don't know if the government paid a ransom. A ransom is money that is paid for kidnappers to get hostages released, We also don't know which group kidnapped the children or why they decided to release them. This kind of kidnapping is part of a larger security problem in Nigeria. Kidnap for ransom abductions represent one aspect of Nigeria's complicated security crisis. This means kidnapping people and demanding money for their release is just one of several serious problems the country faces. In northern Nigeria, gangs of armed bandits roam the vast countryside. Bandits are criminals who rob and attack people, often in groups. These bandits operate in rural areas, places outside of the city, where there are farms and small villages. Nigeria also faces attacks from jihadists. Jihadists are extremist fighters who claim to be fighting for religious reasons. These groups operate with support from surrounding areas in the Sahel. The Sahel is a region in Africa that stretches across the continent just south of the Sahara Desert. The presence of many different non-state actors has made rural areas particularly vulnerable. Non-state actors are armed groups that are not part of the official government or military, but continue to act like a government or a military. Because there are so many different armed groups, and because Nigeria's security agencies don't have enough equipment or personnel, it's very difficult to protect everyone. The Papiri incident was the second mass abduction in Nigeria within just 1 week. A mass abduction means kidnapping of a large group of people at the same time. It was also the second mass abduction in Niger State in 4 years. In May 2021, 135 students were kidnapped from an Islamic seminary in the same state. A seminary is a school specifically or most often for religious purposes. However, the most famous mass abduction in Nigeria remains the 2014 kidnapping of more than 200 schoolgirls from the town of Chibok in northeast Nigeria. This kidnapping became known around the world and sparked a global campaign to free the girls. Many celebrities, including Michelle Obama and Elton John, supported the campaign, which used the hashtag #BringBackOurGirls. Some of the girls were eventually released or escaped, but not all of them have been found. According to SBM Intelligence, which is a research company based in Lagos, there were at least 4,722 victims of kidnappings across Nigeria between July 2024 and June 2025. That's an average of about 13 kidnappings per day. During this period, at least 762 people were killed, and about $1.6 million was paid as ransom in total. These numbers show how serious the kidnapping problem has become in Nigeria. Families, schools, and communities live in fear. Many parents worry about sending their children to school, especially in rural areas. The deteriorating security situation, which means the situation that is getting worse and worse, has drawn international attention. U.S. President Donald Trump has even threatened military action in Nigeria. The Trump administration has designated Nigeria as a country of particular concern, citing what they call a Christian genocide. As I'm sure you know, a genocide is the deliberate killing of a large group of people, especially those of a particular ethnic group or nation. The U.S. government claims the Christians in Nigeria are being systematically killed. However, the Nigerian government in Abuja has repeatedly rejected this framing. They say it's an oversimplification of a complex crisis, meaning it makes the situation seem simple, but it's not. The truth is that the violence in Nigeria affects people of all religions. While some attacks are religiously motivated, many are simply criminal acts motivated by money. Bandits kidnap people for ransom regardless of their religion. The conflict between farmers and herders over land also contributes to violence, and this conflict is more about resources than religion. For now, families in Niger State are celebrating the return of their children. The children will likely need time to recover from their traumatic experience. Schools in the area may need to increase security measures to try to prevent future kidnappings. However, until Nigeria can address this broader security challenge, including poverty, lack of education, and insufficient security forces, kidnappings will likely continue to be a serious problem in many parts of the country. Our vocabulary for this section starts with abduction. Abduction is a noun, which is the act of kidnapping someone, taking someone away illegally by force or deception or lying. Number 2 is ransom, which is also a noun. Money that is demanded or paid for the release of a kidnapped person. Governments can ask for ransom. Also, bandits can ask for ransom. Hostage situations usually ask for ransom. And number 3, ordeal. This is a noun. A very difficult, painful, or frightening experience that lasts for a period of time. Our next story is in Japan. Japan took an important step on Monday to allow the world's largest nuclear power plant to restart operations. This is a watershed moment, which means it's a very significant turning point, a very significant change. In Japan's return to nuclear energy, nearly 15 years after the Fukushima disaster. The plant is called Kashiwazaki Kariwa. It is located about 220 kilometers or 136 miles northwest of Tokyo. This plant was one of 54 nuclear reactors that Japan shut down after the terrible disaster in 2011. In March 2011, a massive earthquake and tsunami hit Japan. The tsunami, or a giant wave caused by an earthquake, crippled the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. This caused the worst nuclear disaster since Chernobyl in 1986. Radiation leaked from the damaged reactor, and about 160,000 people had to evacuate their homes. Some areas are still unsafe to live in today. After the Fukushima disaster, Japan shut down all of its nuclear reactors. The country wanted to make sure they were safe before using them again. Since then, Japan has restarted 14 of the 33 reactors that still can operate. However, Kashiwazaki Kariwa will be the first one operated by Tokyo Electric Power Company, or TEPCO. TEPCO is the same company that ran the Fukushima plant that failed in 2011. On Monday, Niigata Prefecture's assembly held an important vote. The prefecture, or a prefecture, is like a state or province, like Gangwon-do or something. It's a large administrative region. The assembly passed a vote of confidence for Niigata Governor Hideo Hanazumi. Hanazumi had supported restarting the plant last month. This vote effectively allows the plant to begin operations again. This is a milestone, but this is not the end. Hanazumi told reporters after the vote. A milestone is an important event or achievement. He added, there is no end in terms of ensuring the safety of Niigata residents. However, the vote showed that the community is deeply divided about the restart. While lawmakers voted to support Hanazumi, many residents are worried. The restart could bring new jobs and potentially lower electricity bills, but many people fear another disaster. This is nothing other than a political settlement that does not take into account the will of Niigata residents. This is a quote from one of the assembly members who opposed the restart. They were telling fellow lawmakers this before the vote. Outside the assembly building, around 300 protesters stood in the cold weather holding banners. The banners read, "No nukes," or "We oppose the restart of Kashiwazaki Kariwa," and "Support Fukushima." Kenichiro Ishiyama is a 77-year-old protester from Niigata City. He told Reuters after the vote, "I am truly angry from the bottom of my heart. If something was to happen at the plant, we would be the ones to suffer the consequences." According to the public broadcaster NHK, TEPCO is considering reactivating the first reactor on January 20th. The plant has 7 reactors in total. Its total capacity is 8.2 gigawatts. That's enough electricity to power a few million homes. TEPCO plans to bring 1.36 gigawatt reactor online next year and start another one with the same capacity around 2030. Masakatsu Takata is a spokesperson for TEPCO. He said, "We remain firmly committed to never repeating such an accident and ensuring Niigata residents never experience anything similar." However, he declined to comment on the exact timing of the restart. After the announcement, TEPCO's stock price went up 2% in Tokyo trading, showing that investors are happy about the news. Earlier this year, TEPCO tried to win support from Niigata residents by pledging to invest 100 billion yen, about $641 million, into the prefecture over the next 10 years. Despite this money, many residents remain worried. A survey published by the prefecture in October found that 60% of residents did not think the condition for restart had been met. Nearly 70% were worried about TEPCO operating the plant. These numbers show that most people are not comfortable with the restart. Ayako Oga is a 52-year-old and one of the people most opposed to the restart. She has a very personal reason for her opposition. In 2011, Oga fled the area around Fukushima plant along with 160,000 other evacuees. Her old home was inside the 20-kilometer irradiated exclusion zone. This is an area so full of radiation that people can't live there. Oga settled in Niigata after leaving Fukushima. She is now a farmer and an anti-nuclear activist. She has joined the protests in Niigata against restarting Kashiwazaki Kariwa. This is a quote. We know firsthand the risk of a nuclear accident and cannot dismiss it," said Oga. She added that she still struggles with post-traumatic stress-like symptoms from what happened at Fukushima. Post-traumatic stress means continuing mental or emotional problems from the result of some physical action or some bad experience. Even Governor Hanazumi, who supports the restart, hopes that Japan will eventually reduce its reliance on nuclear power. He said, "I want to see an era where we don't have to rely on energy sources that cause anxiety." So why is Japan restarting nuclear plants despite these concerns? The answer is energy security and cost. Japan imports most of its energy because it has very few natural resources. The country relies heavily on imported fossil fuels. This is oil, natural gas, and coal, which accounts for 60% to 70% of Japan's electricity generation. Last year, Japan spent 10.7 trillion yen, about $68 billion, on imported liquefied natural gas and coal. That's liquid version. That's 1/10 of all the money Japan spends on imports. Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi, who took office 2 months ago, has backed nuclear restarts to strengthen energy security and reduce the cost of imported fossil fuels. Japan also faces another challenge: rising energy demand. Despite its shrinking population, Japan expects energy demand to increase over the coming decade. This is because of a boom in power-hungry AI data centers. These facilities need enormous amounts of electricity to run the computers that power artificial intelligence. To meet these needs and its environmental commitment to reduce carbon emissions, Japan has to set targets of doubling the share of nuclear power in its electricity mix to 20% by 2040. Nuclear power doesn't produce carbon dioxide like fossil fuels do, which is why some people consider it important for fighting climate change. The Monday vote was seen as the final hurdle before TEPCO restarts the first reactor. Japan's trade ministry has estimated that this one reactor alone could boost electricity supply to the Tokyo area by 2%. Joshua New, who works for the Wood Mackenzie, an energy consulting company, said that public acceptance of restarting Kashiwazaki Kariwa would represent a critical milestone towards reaching Japan's energy goals. In July, another Japanese power company, Kansai Electric Power, announced it would begin conducting surveys for a new reactor in western Japan. This would be the first completely new nuclear unit since the Fukushima disaster. All right, our vocabulary for this one starts with watershed. We've used this term before. It means a turning point, an event or period marking an important change, a sudden change. This is an adjective or noun. We have crippled, which is a verb, or it can be an adjective as well. Severely damaged something so it cannot function properly anymore. And number 3, evacuate. This is a verb. To leave a dangerous place and go somewhere safe. To remove people from a dangerous area. All right, we have our final story here in South Korea. Let's take a last sip break. Very nice. All right, here we go. South Korea has completed the development of a next-generation high-speed train that can operate at 370 kilometers per hour. This makes it the world's second fastest train in terms of commercial operating speed, according to the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, and Transport. The new train is named EMU 370. The EMU stands for Electric Multiple Unit, which is a type of train where multiple cars have their own electric motors. The 370 refers to its operating speed of 370 kilometers per hour. To give you an idea of how fast that is, 370 kilometers per hour, we all know, but it's also around 230 miles per hour. The train's technically designed maximum speed is even higher, around 407 kilometers per hour. However, trains typically don't operate at their absolute maximum speed for safety reasons. The operating speed is 370 kph. It is the speed at which the train will run when carrying passengers. The EMU 370 has developed under a national research and development program. The project was led by the Korea Railroad Research Institute, known as KRRI. 7 public and private organizations participated in the project, which ran from April 2022 to December 2025, about 3.5 years. The total investment in this project was 22.5 billion won, which equals about $15.23 million. The government provided 18 billion won, and private companies contributed 4.5 billion won. This shows that both the government and private businesses believe this project was important for Korea's future. The government plans to begin manufacturing the first EMU 370 train cars next year in 2026. After the trains are built, they will need to be tested to make sure they are safe and work properly. Test operations will begin in 2030. If the tests are successful, the trains are expected to be commercialized, which means they will start carrying actual passengers, after 2031. Once the EMU 370 is deployed, it will rank second globally in commercial operating speed. The only faster train will be China's CR450. China is currently testing the CR450 at 400 kilometers per hour, and they plan to launch it commercially in 2027. Other major high-speed trains in the world operate at lower speeds. High-speed trains in France, Germany, and Japan currently operate at around 320 kilometers per hour. How does the EMU 370 compare to Korea's current fastest train? Korea's current fastest train is the EMU 320, which is known as the KTX Chongyang. The new EMU 370 has several improvements compared to this older train. First, the EMU 370 has 47.4% higher motor output. This means its motors are much more powerful, nearly 50% stronger. Second, it has 12.3% lower air resistance. Air resistance is the force that pushes against the object as it travels. Lower air resistance means the train can move even faster. And third, the new train has 33% reduction in horizontal vibration acceleration. This is a difficult term, but it means the train shakes side to side much less when it's moving. This makes the ride smoother and more comfortable for passengers. Fourth, there is a 2 decibel decrease in indoor noise. A decibel, maybe you've heard, is a unit of sound to measure how loud something is. The new train will be quiet inside, making it more pleasant for passengers. The EMU 370 will seat around 500 passengers, a little less. That's enough room for nearly 500 people on one train. The train has a motor capacity of 560 kilowatts. To help you understand how powerful that is, this is the equivalent to the combined output of 75 mid-sized sedans, or regular cars, all working together. All right, today, this is the end of our news. We have our vocabulary before we finish. First, commercial. This is an adjective meaning related to business available for regular public use, not just testing or military use. Our second is deployed. This is a verb. It is put into use or service, launched or for regular operation. This is usually vehicles and often talks about military. And number 3, infrastructure. This is a noun. The basic physical system and facilities needed for something to operate or function. For example, roads, railways, scaffolding, something like that. And that wraps up today's news. I hope you found these stories interesting and easy to follow. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps the channel grow. And let me know in the comments which story stood out to you the most today. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching Digestible News, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay curious, stay informed, and take care. Bye.